It's Channel Grim and Grin's Monster Bites, The Silent Screams. This episode, The Headless Horseman. When I decided to do this series of reviews for Halloween, I settled on the number 13, not because I had 13 silent horror movies that I wanted to review, but because I had some silent horror movies that I wanted to review, and rather than just do the ones I had something to say about or choose an arbitrary number, I settled on 13 because it's a spooky number. What this meant is that while I could gush off the cusp about maybe 10 of these films without even having to rewatch them because I'm just so familiar with them, I don't even know how many times I've seen Nosferatu, I did have to then go out of my way and find a few extra movies that I hadn't really seen, or at least not for a very long time, to become familiar with so I could say something about them. And one such complete shot in the dark was The Headless Horseman from 1922. Going into the movie, I was aware that it's based off of Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, though beyond having seen the Disney movie where it's combined with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, I'm not entirely familiar with that story itself. I just have a vague recollection of it. But I figured spooky Headless Horseman, what can go wrong? And the answer is a fair bit. Unfortunately, this movie is very low on the horror and very high on the drama with very little payoff. I would say of this list, it's the most skippable of all the films. You only really get a few seconds of a spectral horse at the beginning of the film, and then nothing but unlikable characters having arguments and disagreements and all sorts of drama for another 50 minutes. With only 8 minutes left in the film, you start to really hope that the Headless Horseman will actually make some kind of an appearance, and when it finally does, unfortunately the copy of the film I could find was of such low quality that you can't really tell too well unless you squint as to whether or not the rider has a head or not, because the footage is so darn grainy and just so dark. I would say if you can find a restored version of this film or an AI upscaled version of it or something, maybe just go and watch The Last Chase. But aside from that, give this movie a skip and watch Nosferatu again instead.
So don't stop to figure out a plan. You can't reason with a headless man.